Hi everyone, welcome to the Final Four edition of the Bison video blog. Along with Jeff Kolpak, I'm Dom Izzo. Here we are in the middle of December. The Bison football team is still playing as we're down to the Final Four, Jeff. All the top four seeds, just as we predicted way back when, are left. We have Sam Houston State and Montana in one semifinal, and the Bison get Georgia Southern, something we talked about way back in September, a game that was supposed to be played at the Fargo Dome. It seems somebody wants this game to be played, and now the Eagles will come to Fargo on Saturday.
I think you called it the football god question.
Yes, I did.
Right? I think the head coach really didn't want to bite on it much in the press conference, but it is true. Georgia Southern bought this game out for Samford University in a home game, and it was a season opener for Georgia Southern, and NDSU instead had to play St. Francis University, and we all know how that went, rather boring game. But this is it's something. That was a game, by the way, that Georgia Southern that everybody is looking forward to for at least a year or two. Hey, you got the Eagles on the schedule. Correct. One of the best teams in 1AA, now FCS.
And the fact is, especially when NDSU went there, you went on that trip in 2006. The Bison beat them by 20 points in Statesboro, 34-14. So I think fans knew the Georgia Southern name, and we'll get to that in a second. But the chance of them coming during a regular season contest, I think that was the most disappointing fact about it. And I think it adds another level of mystique to this week's game that now they're coming, and it's a chance to go to the national championship.
First of all, you alluded to the 2006 game. That was a Georgia Southern team that was a whole different program, so to speak. They had a new coach in who tried to put in a multiple offense. You don't do that in Statesboro, Georgia. You run the ball. You run the triple option. That's how they won their national titles. That's how they hang their hat, and that's what they're doing this year, and they're doing it quite well. 6
national champions. This is the team that, besides Youngstown State, that I think the average football fan would know is really, really good, and they are really good at running the football. You just said they average 334 yards a game. These are the numbers they've had the last 4 games running the football: 290, 302, 477, and 360. That's their rushing totals the last 4 games.
It looks like an 11-man team versus a 9-man team,
really
with
does.
a 9-man team being on defense. 334.1 yards rushing. And but here's the other thing, though. There are some flaws. I mean, you can attack this team, this defense a little bit. 38 fumbles by Georgia Southern this year. They've only lost 15, but yet you put it on the ground 38 times. That's a lot. And the defenses of Georgia Southern defense has given up 349 yards a game. So, it's not this total juggernaut that NDSU is going to get blown out. No, they have a chance, certainly. I actually look at this game as almost a toss-up.
Let's go back to the other talking point this week will be that Georgia Southern put up the most points that the University of Alabama has allowed this year. The University of Alabama is playing LSU for the national championship in the big boy division. Georgia Southern rushed for 302 yards, and they scored 21 points against Alabama. Now, the detractors, and I know there's going to be people while they're watching, they say, well, they weren't playing their main guys, or they were looking forward to Auburn. I'll ask you, how much stock do you put in that performance that Georgia Southern had against the Crimson Tide?
I still think it was 101,000 people at Alabama Stadium, and you have, even if the backups were in, which I really didn't look at it, but I know Nick Saban was just relieved, actually, after the game. And I think the Bison head coach said he looked haggard in the locker room in the post-game press conference. So it's still Alabama. It's still a great program. And to put those numbers up, against a team like that late in the year, this isn't early.
Correct.
Late in the year.
That's the final game of the year.
That's pretty good.
Couple of things now on the Bison side of things. Craig Bohl said in his weekly press conference, it looks like that Colton Hegel will be back in. That's a much bigger deal this week than it was last week, Jeff, at strong safety. But it looks like starting free safety, Daniel Eves is out. Does this cancel each other out with Hegel back and Eves gone?
Well, you like to have your senior Eves back in the game. I mean, I don't think it cancels it out so much, but the Bison do need Hegel. He's their run stopper. He's their run safety. Yeah. He hits probably pound per pound harder than anybody, probably harder than anybody in the Missouri Valley Football Conference. So, but we thought he's going to be back last week too. So I'm just somewhat cautious on that.
Same thing with Ryan Smith. We were in the same spot last week. We thought Smith may play. He did get out there for the first 2 series and then couldn't go. We saw Brock Jensen spread the ball around a bit last week on Saturday, getting Kevin Vodlin, Andrew Grothman, Taylor Nelson into the game. But I don't think it can be understated how much they need Ryan Smith, especially because Georgia Southern's going to put 5 guys on Warren Holloway.
Yeah, at least 5
you
guys.
Think?
They need his receiving abilities, but more than that, I think they need him in the punt return game. Although DJ McNorton has had his flashes, he's also doesn't seem to be, he's not their number 1 guy back there. He fielded one punt at like the 2 or 3 yard line.
That wasn't one go over his head as well.
And didn't field another one, which cost him a lot of yards. So Ryan Smith, his value is just multi-dimensional.
I want to talk about something we stressed in the post-game show on Saturday. And you and I were sitting here 2 years ago, and we were talking about 3-8, and where do the Bison go from here? Well, now here they are in the national semifinals. A win Saturday, they get to play for the national championship. And I asked Craig Bohl this, and he said it's a lot more complicated than just one really good recruiting class. But it cannot be overstated how much impact the 2010 recruiting class has had on the success of the 2011 Bison.
What, 75%? I mean, let's put a percentage on it. You got look at all those players that are playing, all the sophomores and redshirt freshmen. Georgia Southern's also young too, so you have two rather young teams. You also can't overstate the value of the seniors. You know, you just mentioned Eves. You got Coulter, Boyer, Evans. You can't do it. You can't have a bunch of young guys and without some good leadership make it this far.
The Bison, when they opened the Fargo Dome, was the intent of getting playoff games there. NDSU is now maxed out. The most they could have was 3. They'll have 3. How much of an impact have you seen in the first 2 games has it had on the Bison winning?
Huge. It's you know, has that been the sole number one difference? No, but it's pretty close. It's I thought the crowd in the first half was as loud as I ever heard it. It was. It might have topped Northern Iowa. I have this iPhone decibel app, and it didn't even work. I think it only goes up to 100.
Now, the other semifinal will be played Friday night. That's at 7 o'clock on ESPN. That's Montana and Sam Houston State. You mentioned to me on Saturday you've had a couple days to think about it. Montana still in your mind the favorite to win this thing?
I think so. I think the Grizzlies are still just how well they're playing, how they dismantled Montana State late in the year, and
they
how
went
they
from
dismantled
2-2.
Northern Iowa. Northern
Yeah.
Iowa's never been beat like that in who knows how long.
Montana was 2-2. They lost to Sac State in early September, and you and I talked about it on my radio show. That what's going on with the Grizzlies? 9 wins later, and here they are, a win away from going back to the championship game. You look at how impressive they are, and what they did to Northern Iowa. I don't think can be understated. How impressive that was.
How they changed. They didn't make the playoffs last year, which doesn't go over well in Missoula. And to start out 2-2, you heard some rumblings of their coach maybe being in jeopardy. Well, now he may win a national title. So what do you think of him now?
Sam Houston State, though, is playing at home, knowing that if they win, they'll get to play in their home state just up the road from Houston to Dallas to play in Frisco for the national championship. Well, as you look, as this boils down to, and I don't want to give away massive keys to the game, but it is just simple. If the Bison run defense plays well Saturday, they win the game?
Yeah, they throw 11 guys. No, they throw 10 guys at the line of scrimmage and say, Marcus Williams, you cover that whatever receiver is out there. Of course, it's not that simple. There's a lot of gaps and there's just a lot of schemes. And I thought Kevin Schneff had a good column in the Forum today. How ironic. NDSU beat all those teams all those years with the triple option or the veer option or whatever you want to call it. And now here it comes back full circle where the Bison now have to stop it.
Surprised at all that the tickets are basically sold out. It happened yesterday so fast that the momentum for this team has grown.
I was a tad surprised that they're all gone on a Sunday, but it goes to show you that this town loves a winner.
North Dakota State and Georgia Southern will be filled with stories all week. Jeff will have them in the Forum. We'll have them here on the blog and on WDAY. Our coverage will start on Saturday on game day at 11:30 with our pregame show, and then of course the live blog. We had 13,000. You want to put an under over? What we're going to do on what we're going to do on Saturday?
Well, you know, it's the biggest blog in the world, right? It's in our own minds.
The game is a 1:30 kickoff on ESPNU, and we'll have you covered all week. For Jeff Kolpak, I'm Dom Izzo. This is the Bison Video Blog semifinal edition.